Thank you all for coming on this Friday evening, talking about the Civics 101, understanding the different levels of government from the federal, state, and local government. And as you may all know, that it's going to be such a complex subject that we're going to try to narrow it all in 30 minutes. So bear with me. So before I continue on with the topic, and before I introduce myself, I want to thank a few people. First, I want to thank my amazing wife who keeps pushing me and believing in me. Also, I want to thank my 2-month-old daughter, Dua. She is giving me my new why. Also, I want to thank my brothers who encouraged me, believe in me, and invested in me on Muslim Voter Guide. And then also I want to thank Brazoria County Voter Initiative. My friends FJ and Jim Mooney are outside helping people register to vote. And then lastly, I want to thank you all coming on a Friday evening and those who are listening online. It means a lot. So my name is Ahmed Al-Aswad. Started this initiative of Muslim Voter Guide. This is a nonpartisan initiative, and it helps guide the greater Houston Muslim community during the midterm elections, May election, runoffs, and general elections, because we believe that an informed Muslim voter is a powerful one. To learn more, go to muslimvoterguide.com. And also I want to say this is a disclaimer. Any candidates or any elected official that we're talking about, this is not an endorsement. We're all talking hypotheticals, and the views that I'm going to be talking about is my own and not Shadow Creek Masjid. So a little bit about myself. As I said, my name is Ahmed. I have extensive multi-decades of community work. I went to Sam Houston State, studied political science, did my master's in public administration. I started my career as an intern with the city of Houston, and I slowly worked as an intern, unpaid intern, I should say, and I worked hard because I know that this was the doors that I can help with my community. Soon I became a council aide, then an agenda director, and then had an amazing opportunity to be the first Muslim and Arab chief of staff for a county commissioner in Fort Bend County, where I had the opportunity to not only represent the great people of Fort Bend, but also go to Austin and work on legislations, and then also go to Washington, D.C. to make sure that we get FEMA or millions of dollars, federal funds, to the local levels. So this is going to be pretty interactive, and this is going to be a discussion, but as I mentioned, we're going to kind of condense all this complex topic within 30 minutes, and we'll have 15 minutes of Q&A. So let me ask a question for y'all. So we're going to be talking about the federal government. How many branches of government are there in the federal government? You in the GI? 3. Awesome. Do you know what they are? Legislative? Executive? That's always the tricky one, the judicial one. Yeah. Awesome. Great job. Someone pays attention to civics. Good. So yes, there's 3 branches of government: executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch. So let's talk about first the executive branch. The executive branch of the federal government is someone like the president, the vice president, and then also the cabinets. These are 15 appointed positions that the president appoints. So you can say this is the director of the FBI or Homeland Security, the State Department. And as you probably are watching the news frequently, they always have press briefings, right? And so you see these appointed individuals who are also shaping our government. Then you also have the executive office of the president, which includes the cabinet. So the role of the executive branch is the individual who executes the laws. So they don't make the laws, they don't make anything, they make some policies, but ultimately in the sense of what the executive branch does is they just enforce the laws. And so when people go, and you probably are hearing individuals who are going around America promising this and promising that, those are promises that is going to be very hard to fulfill if Congress is not behind them, right? The legislative branch is the ones that make the law. So just that's something to be wary about whenever you do meet these individuals in the executive branch. And they're promising laws. That's going to be something you need to make sure that you hold them accountable. Because the next is the legislative branch. So legislative branches are those that make the laws. How many houses are there in the House? Oh, in Congress, I should say. Anyone? Two. Awesome. Can you name them? Senate and the House of Representatives. So there are two chambers in the legislative branch in the federal government. So you have U.S. representatives, and then you also have the Senate. And they're two different for a reason, right? They're two chambers for a reason. So let's talk about the House of Representatives first. The House of Representatives, their responsibility is to create and pass federal laws that should represent their constituents, their interests, and oversees the government operations. So every state has U.S. representatives, and it's based off of different population, right? So the population size. Texas has 38 congressional districts. They added 2 just recently in the census. Every 10 years, they gather people, like how many are you living in this one area. So that way the federal government can know how much federal funds can they funnel to the congressional area. So that's why it's so important for you all to make sure that your census are counted, because if you don't count it, then that's thousands of dollars that will be missing, right? These roads, 288, the expansion, and all that, that's all from the census ultimately. So roughly 766,000 people are in one congressional district. And there is a 2-year term with no term limits. So anyone can run as much as they want. As long as they get elected, they are good to go. There's a reason why it's a 2-year term, because the forefathers, created this so that way the congressional legislative branch, the House of Representatives, are held accountable by their constituents. So they have to. The running joke is, you can run for Congress. Really, you work for 1 year, and then the other year, you got to campaign, right? Because you want to make sure that you make your constituents happy. And by default, if the constituents don't care or don't get involved, then that makes their job a lot easier. And the whole point for this, my interpretation by the forefathers, is why it's 2-year terms, is we should make their job difficult. We should get engaged. We should talk to them and tell them you're not doing your job. And if you don't do your job, we'll find someone else that can do it. That's the wisdom that the forefathers had. Next is the Senate, the United States Senate. They are also responsible for passing federal laws, and they confirm presidential appointments. So like the director of FBI, the states, all that all gets appointed by the Senate. And then they ratify treaties from different nations, and they also conduct impeachment trials, which we kind of saw that a few years back. Their terms are 6-year terms, and they have no term limits. So that is why, again, the House of Representatives are there to represent the people, and then the Senate is just more of making sure that there's checks and balances within the legislative branch. Each state has how many senators? 2. Great. Yeah. So every state has 2 senators, and how a law gets passed. And if you watch the cartoon with the bill, right? He's like, this is how a bill is created, right? And he's singing this. It's very, very simple. Is that a representative from the House and the Senate? They draft and they put a bill out there. The bill gets heard by a committee. The committee is run by the head of the committee, the chair, the vice chair of the committee, and then it's a bilateral or bipartisan, I should say, committee. If you have a majority House of Representatives, then you'll have majority power of making sure the bills get passed. So a House committee listens to this bill, they debate it, they pass it, and then they go to the House floor. The House floor also debates, and then they pass it. And then the same thing happens in the Senate. So it's two bills going up at the same time, and then the House approves it, the Senate approves it, and then Congress comes in, right? And then that's where they pass it as a congressional people together. And then once that bill gets voted by the House and the Senate, then it goes to the president where he signs it. And then if he doesn't sign it, because the president has the ability to veto it, he can say, no, I don't want this. Well, for checks and balances, both the House and the Senate can override it by a 2/3 majority and say, no, this is what we wanted, and so that's the override. So I just saved you, I think it was a 10-minute video of the cartoon. I condensed it in 30 seconds. So next is the judicial branch of the federal government. People think, okay, this is just the Supreme Court. But from recent current events, you know that there are district courts and court of appeals. So those are all considered the federal courts in the area. So a district court can make a judgment of an individual or some judgment, and then if the defendant says no, this is not right, the lawyer can appeal it. Then it goes to the court of appeals. They can make a judgment saying, yes, this is incorrect, this is my verdict, or if they say, no, this is the correct verdict, whatever the case may be. If the defendant doesn't like it, they can also appeal it to the Supreme Court, which is considered the law of the land. Whatever the Supreme Court decides is what their laws are. So as I'm saying this, there's a lot of current events that are happening that you're like, oh, this makes sense, right? This is why the Court of Appeals are so important to get involved in, or making sure that we have the right people to be appointed on, and then also with the Supreme Court, making sure that the president who appoints the Supreme Court is someone who's very favorable for communities like ourselves. So that's the federal government. Any questions on this? Like I said, it's a very complex topic that I'm forced to condense it in 30-minute talk. So next is the state. So we talked about the federal. Now let's talk about the state. Very, very similar to the federal government, the state also has 3 branches of government. So it's the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. So let's talk about the executive branch. Can someone tell me who would be the executive branch? Greg Abbott, yeah, our governor. So our governor is the executive branch, also the lieutenant governor, so he's like the vice governor, the secretary of state, the comptroller of public accounts, the Commissioner of Land, General Land Office, and our Attorney General. They're all considered part of the executive branch. Next is going to be the legislative branch. So very similar to the federal structure. This is very similar in the legislative branch and here in Texas. So our House, we have 150 House members. It is a 2-year term, and there's no term limits. And again, the same reasons why our House of Representatives are a 2-year term is so that way us, the constituents, can make sure that they're doing their job. And we need to make sure that we give them the hard time of you're not doing your job or you are doing your job, thank you so much. And that's why you have to be involved throughout, because if a uninformed constituent just keeps going, living their life and not holding these individuals accountable, they'll just continue doing what they're doing. And so that's the House. The Senate comprises of 31 senators. So instead of 6 years, like in the federal, like U.S. Senate, it's 4 years. 4 years is their term. There's no term limit. The House is a smaller district because it's population. The Senate is also it's actually bigger. That can comprise. The House is confined by some majority of them are confined by just the county level. The Senate has multi-counties. So you have a senator who will represent Brazoria County, Fort Bend County, and Waller County, let's say, for example. So that's the job is a multi-county representation. Unlike Congress, where they meet on a monthly, weekly basis, there are some session recess here and there. Our legislative branch, our legislative is, they meet every 2 years. So they meet every odd years. So in 2024, there was no legislation, no legislative session happening. So that means next year, in January, they'll start their session, and it's only 140 days. So 140 days, all these laws or all these bills that everyone wants to pass, they go and they submit it immediately, and then they're hoping that the committee can hear it, and hopefully it gets passed, and then hopefully it gets passed from the committee, hopefully it gets passed in the House and the Senate, and then hopefully Governor Abbott can sign it. When I was in Fort Bend County, that was one thing that really frustrated me, is that we had amazing bills and ideas, bipartisanship ideas, and both the House and the Senate unanimously voted on it. A very rarity, and nowadays in politics where both Republicans and Democrats were supporting the ideas, and then maybe it was a bad day, but the governor vetoed it, and so all the hard work is just done. But that's why it's so important for us to engage these elected officials before the session happens, so that way they know our priority. All right, and then next is the judicial branch. These are trials, so like local courts. Then there's the Court of Appeals, and then Supreme Court. The same basic concepts that they have in the federal government. Any questions for the state?
Why is Texas sessions every 2 years? This is the only state which has a 2 years, after 2 years.
Yeah.
Why are we paid, God? Why are they paid for like only 140 days that they work? They
24 hours they're working, yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So it's because of our Constitution, it's stated every 2 years. And so you can think about it, the inception of the state of Texas, they didn't have cars, right? They didn't have internet, or they didn't have the telephone. So these were individuals who were riding in carts, right, and horses to go to Austin for the session. And so that is why it was every 2 years, because how big Texas is, they couldn't, meet from all corners of the state. So that's why it's every 2 years.
Now everything has
Yeah.
why this law hasn't been changed?
So-
Because there are so many pressure from the public, so many bills which needs to be done.
Yeah.
That needs to be waited for like 2 years.
So the question is why now? Because it's in our constitution, it has to be a constitutional amendment. So it has to go on the ballot where people vote saying, yes, change this, the charter or change our constitution. So I don't know if you guys remember, there was a ballot that said, the state of Texas will never be a state income tax, right? State, and that was on the ballot. And that was because they wanted to make sure it's in the Constitution, it's written there, where it's never going to take a state, do a state income tax. So that is the same way for us to change the legislation from every 2 years to, a yearly thing or whatever the case may be. It still has to go to the ballot. As of now, it's not. No one wants to touch that. No one wants to put it on the committee or put it as a bill. And ultimately, it's the legislative branch has to put it out there, and the executive branch has to sign it. But that's a great question. Yes, sir.
Are they working before the legislative session, preparing their bills, or communicating with the community, I guess?
Yeah. That's a great question. So right now they're doing campaigning right now, right? Because it's and I'll talk about this when the election happens. But you're absolutely right. So actually, the legislative branch they only make $7,000 a year. So these individuals are they're not being there because it's a moneymaker. They're just being there because they want to be either want to represent the community or the title, whatever the case may be. So these individuals have other jobs. So they are professionals, because you can only imagine if someone who's a blue collar worker or someone in the hourly wage can't take off 140 days to go to the session, right, for $7,000. But individuals who are business owners, who have staff, who can take care of their business while they're in Austin is something that they do. So, for example, State Representative Dr. Lalani in Fort Bend, one of the first Muslim House of Representatives in Texas, he's a physician. So he has the luxury of going to Austin during those times. But to answer your question, do they have multiple hats? Yeah, so whenever there are events, they put their hat of a state representative. You can make appointments with their staff. They have staff that work every day, or Monday through Friday. They go to events, and so that's why I encourage everyone, and I'll be talking about this, is get involved now before the elections. So that way, if we as a collective community have an issue and we do our research on individuals are they familiar with our community or are they a foe, right? Then we know we can strategize how we can tackle that individual. So but you understand what I was saying. Now,
Do they have salary? What's salary?
So they only have a $7,000 a year salary.
Did they
7,000.
to increase their salary?
So I believe that's in their constitution on their salary. Now, going back to Uncle, your question about having it all year around instead of every 2 years, that means that if they do that, then the salary will also increase. And that's one of the arguments of people saying, no, keep it as is, because I'm a fiscally conservative individual and we should not pay increase the salaries of these elected officials.
Who decided the minimum wage?
Say it again?
Who decided the minimum wage?
So that's the federal government. The federal government.
Does that belong to the state?
So the federal government can set the guidelines, and then the states can also put their own minimum wage.
Why there is big gap between, for example, Texas and California?
Yeah. Well, there are two different political views on the salaries, but we can talk about this later. I have 5 more minutes, but you have one more.
Yes, the reason is if all those people are professional
Yeah.
who will go there for 140 days, they will be pushing their own agendas for their businesses and all that, not for the people.
You're right. I mean, that's a very good perspective.
Right. I mean, if I am, let's say,
Yeah.
an owner or a businessman,
Yeah.
if I get a chance, I will try to propagate my
Yeah.
own policies which benefit
Yeah.
me.
Pro-business.
I won't be concerned about the people.
Exactly. And then we'll talk about this, but this is why it's so important. If I'm a broken record right now, if there's one thing that I want you guys to get out of this is get involved. Have the meetings, go to your representatives, hold them accountable as not just an individual, because one person, maybe that's not as powerful, but can you imagine, again, this is my view only and not of Shadow Creek, but just imagine if we had 100 people from Shadow Creek, Pomona, these individuals who are saying one message. And if you do what we say, then you will have another term. But if you don't do what we say, then good luck to you in the future endeavors. Those are things that we need to start getting involved in.
If you want to do it, you need to make it like a community inside where they bring it like on a monthly basis, what are their needs, and then a group of the representative from our community go to the other representative.
Exactly.
This is how it works. I mean, we cannot just say, oh, I just wake up and say, I need this, and by myself, or just bring it to the community here. It's
Sure.
Hey, 10 of my friends and go there.
Well-
So it should be a little bit organized.
Well, this is actually one of the reasons, and I think this is when you came in later, but we started an initiative called the Muslim Voter Guide. And so this is a nonpartisan organization who's going to help guide the Muslim community during the May, March general election runoffs, bonds, because sometimes right now there are some elections ballot, depending on where you live, where it's bonds, and people don't know what it means. So we'll help interpret those language so that way we can help you be an informed voter. But you're absolutely right. That's the whole point of this, is for us to get one step closer. So real quick, it's almost 8 o'clock, and I want to. These are great questions. So the last level of government is the local government. So the local governments include county. So the county, we live in Brazoria County, right? Then city council. So the city of Pearland, city of Manville, those cities. School board, which is important. These are Pearland ISD, Alvin ISD, and then MUDS. MUDS is a municipal utilities district. I'm actually the president of my MUD down in Pomona, and we'll talk about the 4 real quick. So everyone knows what city council is, right? Everyone knows. People think they live in the city of Houston. They think Mayor Whitmire is their mayor, but no, you live in Pearland. Pearland is its own city. The mayor is Kevin Cole, who I've met a few times. Great interactions I've had with him. And so there's always one mayor and a city council. Depending on how the city is chartered in their constitution, some might have an at-large position where they represent all the city, or they have individual sections that you represent. And I believe Pearland, you have sections, right? So that's why you have position 1, 2, 3, 4, and then at-large. School board is so critical, especially nowadays. These individuals they actually determine what our children are learning and what books to use, what textbooks they can approve. So there could be something that may not be favorable for our community, but because there's not representation, or we're not involved in the school board meetings, they'll approve it, right, with a distorted view of history or current events, and we need to make sure that we're also involved. But I want to emphasize the MUDs because one, currently I'm the president, but these are overlooked districts, so we all live in a MUD. A MUD is, long story short, when a developer comes, Shadow Creek, right, comes in and they're like, I want to build a master plan community with thousands of homes. They go to the county goes, okay, I approve it. They go to the Austin in legislation, they approve creating a MUD. So the developer, the MUD itself, the district, special district, has bonding powers. So the developer goes, the county goes to the developer, you cannot build this master plan community unless you build the roads, utilities, sewer lines, water lines, all of that. Well, as a businessman, right? That's going to cost millions of billions of dollars, and no way someone is going to do that. So MUDs are special to Texas, and nowhere in the state has, not that I'm aware of, but it's a Texas industry where the MUD has now bonding powers. So the developer appoints 3 to 5 people, not from the community, but they're buddies. And they're like, okay, approve this $100 million plan. And so they approve it, and then they build it, and then houses are being built, and then you get taxed from your, so if you go to your tax item, you see a MUD tax, and that's basically you're reimbursing, you're paying off the debts from the bonds that the developer is, that was using, so that way they don't use their personal funds. That's why it's important. You want to make sure, is your MUD a residential appointed or elected group or not? If it's a developer appointed, make sure you have every right to look at when the term is over, which is in May. Typically it's May. Put your name on there. Put your name on the ballot. That's what I did. After I was fed up with not having representation, I put my name on there. And then eventually, now we have a fully residential board where all of our decisions are based off what is good for the community. Like our taxes was $1.50. I know it was a lot, but now with our involvement, because we're paying for the taxes, now it's $1.30. So it's a 20 cents decrease within 5 years. I've been there for 5 years. So that's why I encourage everyone to be involved in the MUDs. So that was our tax rate.
1.3%.
So it's so originally is a $1.50 per $100 of your house. So now so we'll talk about now the county. The county has representation. So they are considered commissioners' courts. So I was the chief of staff for a county commissioner. Every county has 4 commissioners. So they are supposed to work with people that live outside of the city limits. So here is considered Pearland city limits. So your commissioner may be as involved as my commissioner, Commissioner Linder, who is the Precinct 4 commissioner, because I live outside of my city, outside of Manville city limits. So all the issues that I have to deal with is either goes through the MUD or through and working with the county. So if there's a pothole or whatever in county roads, the county commissioners will fix it. And then to make sure that there's no tie, they have a county commissioner. The county commissioner is the individual who is the at-large. He or she represents all of the county. They make sure that they run the meetings, and if there is a tie, they become the tiebreaker. All of the commissioners have equal power. Even the county judge has equal power as amongst the commissioners. The only thing that now, if there's a disaster, like a hurricane or an activation, a fire, flooding, the judge can be activated, and then now the judge is now taking the lead. So you see like Lina Hidalgo always up in front because she's the county judge. Sebesta is our judge. Matt Sebesta is our judge. And whenever there is any issues within Missouri County, then he would be the one out there. So those are the levels of government from the federal, state, and local. Like I said, it's so complex, and I try to condense it in 30 minutes. I think I did my best, and I think I did well. But one of the things before we go to questions is there's an important few dates that we all need to remember. Is, especially now, October 7th of 2024 is the last day to register to vote. I encourage everyone, if you are not registered to vote, there are two individuals, my friends, FJ Jones and Jim Mooney, who are outside ready to get everyone to vote. You have to be 18 years or older, or 18 at the day of election or older. You cannot be, you can't be convicted felon and all that. Inshallah, you guys aren't. But there are some requirements. You have to be a U.S. citizen. But October 7th is the last day to register to vote. Early voting starts October 21st through November 1st. I always encourage, my wife and I, we always go on the first day of early voting, just to get it out of the way. No one's there, there's no lines, no nothing, you just go. Shadow Creek here, the library is a perfect example of just in and out. And then the voting day is November 5th. And so those are the dates that we need to be mindful now for 2024, making your votes, your voices heard. But also, as I mentioned, there are MUDs, school boards, other local bonds that also get overlooked because their elections are in May. So I encourage everyone to also be as enthusiastic when you're voting during the March primary, right, to vote your political party, and then your general election for your candidate, but also make sure that you get involved in the May election. I'll tell you this one story, and then it'll be Q&A, or we'll do that then and then Q&A. There was a MUD. I mentioned what the MUD is, right? There was a MUD that requested $15 million in bonds. Guess how many people voted?
What?
Close. 2 people. 2 people voted for the bond, and they were part of the MUD. So imagine if we start asking questions on why are we spending our hard-earned taxes on a swimming pool. Jersey Village right now is having a bond for $10 million for a swimming pool. Whether or not you think that's appropriate or not, that's your determination, but one can argue $10 million can be used something else, right? But if no one goes and talks about it, no one goes and tells their friends and family, then it might get passed because no one's there to vote. So with that said, Jazakallah khair for staying with me on a Friday evening, for those who are listening, and I'll be here. We can have Q&A, and inshallah I'll be here after, and I pray Isha. I try to pray Isha as much as I can. So if you do find me, grab me to the side. If you have any political questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
جزاك الله خير. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Why are there two mud tanks in Bazoria County? Because we live in Shadow Creek, one tax comes into the water bill,
Yeah.
and the mud tax comes separately at the end of the year. So why isn't it a double dipping?
No, that's a great question. So why are you getting two taxes? That's because how your mud is set up, where either you have it that way set up, or your mud has it that way, and so you would have to talk to your mud. I can talk to you about I can find out your mud number, and we can find out why. From my experience, for my mud, we make sure that's all one. So that way they can see everything going in, and it's all one bill. And that was because I started that initiative. So
Where do we see the second one? Into the water bill, if you look at the bottom of that, there's a mud tax. But at the end of the year, you get a separate bill for the mud tax.
You mean part of the property tax?
So-
yeah, there's a property tax and then there's a water. Yeah.
That comes as a separate bill. It says mud, we are in mud 26 district, I
Okay.
believe. And then if you look onto your water and utilities bill, there's a mud tax at the end.
Yeah. Maybe one day, inshallah, after Aisha, you can bring me the bill and we can try to interpret it that. But again, it's all every district has a different style on how to send out the bills.
The other thing is, you said get involved with the
Yeah.
political people.
Yeah.
Okay, I have gone to a lot of elected people on an individual basis for all them.
Good.
Listen it, and then it's kind of closed.
Yeah.
We need to have a community outreach where there is a community members, go them and talk with them, and what you call, counter them, that if you do not listen to us, we are not going to
Yeah.
be voting for you.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I should not say, but unfortunately, we Muslims are very lacking in that.
We are, and thank you, Uncle, for bringing that point. And that's why, being from the inside, and then now, making sure that we have a strategy, who to talk to, who we don't talk to. So that's the whole point of the Muslim voter guide. Because we do the research, we make sure that we hold them accountable, and so that way, it makes it as easy for everyone else. But I'll mention that there's if you want to get involved. Like, do your research. It's not a Democrat, Republican, or independent, right, topic. look and do your research on a candidate. And yes, maybe federal, maybe someone can argue the state is very, unreachable. We're not there yet as a community. But I would argue the city is somewhere that we can definitely start building influences. The county, right? I'm not going to call you out, but do you guys know who your county commissioner is? Do you know who your congressional person is? Yeah. So I'm not belittling, but that's the whole reason, right? Is you got to do your research. 2020, before 2020, this was all District 22. Troy, now Shri, and then Troy Nels, and then Troy Nels won. And then remember how the redistricting every 10 years they redistrict. Well, this area is a very blue area, Democrat area. Well, this would have hindered Troy Nels in the future, so they gerrymandered, right? So now Al Green is your representative. And Al Green has been in Washington on the podium fighting for the Palestinians, urging two-state solutions. He's out there forefront. I've sent them letters. I've called him. Thank you, his staff. But I can't do this all alone. We all need to do this. Whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or independent, if people are fighting for us and representing us, we have to shoot a thank you email, a call, going to their office, giving them knafa, right? Just saying thank you so much for your hard work. And that's how you build that relationship. There's a state senator, Molly, who's Jewish American, who was critical of the state of Israel, and she's Jewish, and now she's getting some fire. And I think on WhatsApp there was, hey, send a letter to thank her, send an email. We should be encouraging to shoot those emails. Thank you. Going to her office, her staff, because these are individuals, not a party. Individuals who are fighting for what is just, forbidding what is good, enjoying what is evil, enjoying what is good, forbidding what is evil. And that's a candidate who we need to all support. So, any other questions? Yes.
Surcharge $5.
Say it again.
Surcharge for $5.
So that's probably, yeah. Surcharge. Okay, so that's probably just a fee, because, huh?
You pay taxes.
So, yeah. So there's a fee in Texas. So it could be a fee that I don't know. I don't know the details, but it could be because you're requesting a paper. Is it a paper bill? That's probably one.
No, it comes whether it's
Okay.
paper or.
I don't know. I'm just asking. I don't know. It's very hard to find out what the surcharge is.
And then there's one mud in the property tax.
One mud property tax. Yeah.
I say thanks to the person who reduced my tax property.
Yeah.
Till now I didn't find anyone.
Well, you need to live in Pomona then, because we've been working hard to reduce those taxes.
Every year.
You had a question?
So yeah, for the normal person, right?
Yeah.
This can look very overwhelming, right? So many people,
Sure.
so many groups. And of course, we'd love to be involved, and we'd love to be able to be a community and, shape the future. But I think the problem is a lot of times we don't have the knowledge, and because it's overwhelming, we don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So do you have any recommendations of resources,
Yeah.
people, whatever, for a simple person, right, who can commit some time but not commit all their
Sure.
time, right?
Yeah.
So find that middle ground. Do you have some recommendations?
I do. Muslim voter guide, right? I mean, that's one thing, and inshallah, every year, every election will be better and better. But what I encourage everyone is, one, register to vote. If you are not registered to vote, register to vote. After you register to vote, make sure your family is registered to vote. Then, after you and your family are registered to vote, go out to vote. So go out to vote, even if you're voting for one person. Fine, go out there. And then nowadays, and I'm talking hypothetically, right? Again, my views alone, but Sami Hamid, he's a political analyst, and he made an amazing comment in regards to, like, right now in the elections, and I know also too, I support his views, is that the Democratic Party is spending millions of dollars trying to flip Texas, right? So when these are individual, like Democrats who are voting, and then 2024, they're not voting Democrat, they're voting third party. They're gonna, because they're spending millions of dollars on trying to flip Texas, they're gonna spend more millions of dollars doing surveys. They're gonna survey these individuals saying, you've been voting Democrat for how many elections? Why haven't you voted this election as a Democrat? And then in the survey, individual can say, Gaza. Absolutely. I've said it to their faces, Gaza. And then with more and more people saying Gaza, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, like all these that's happening in the Levant area, now there's going to be a political shift. Now there's a political opinion where they're like, oh, we're not going to a very safe road if we continue what we're doing. But also, Sami Hamid made an amazing analysis, is that if a third party candidate gets 5% of the national vote, population vote, then that political party becomes recognized. Meaning now we broke the two-party system, and now we can have options. Federal money can go to that third party, and now it's no longer a two-party system. That's the power that people don't want us to know. But that's the power that we hold. And whether we use it or not in November is up to you.
They get to put them on the ballot too. The party is fighting to keep them off the ballot.
Yeah. There's lawsuits happening so that way they are not in the ballot.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid.
Nevada has taken her
Yeah.
off the ballot actually.
I know. But you can write their names.
Yes.
But in Texas, there's a Green Party candidate. I'm not going to say their names because I want to respect Shadow Creek. But there's also a Libertarian candidate as well. So there are options for us. But I think we know what we know.
For the independent, can you write it down?
So there is a section for writing. But right now, for the presidential election, you have a Democrat, you have a Republican, you have a Green Party, you have a Libertarian, and then there's a section you can write, or you can leave it blank. You don't have to vote for anyone. You can write what you just said, yes.
Texas, on the ballot in Texas, it will have all the options pretty much.
Yeah. Yep.
And the 5% is only state or
Total. Yeah. So going back to strategy, right? As a community, hypothetically speaking, strategically speaking, us holding what we have, that's something important for us to utilize and be strategic. All right, yeah.
How much, besides Muslims, just taking the third candidate, what we are guessing, has a chance to get?
Yeah, that's a great question. So,
How many non-Muslims
yeah.
hear the support?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Sami Hamid made a great breakdown of the 5%, and like Muslims may be considered one, less than one, but there are a lot of people who are people of other faiths, people of no faiths, who are not happy with the two-party system.
That includes a lot of Americans too. They're fed up from the
Oh, yeah,
system.
We're all Americans, yes. Yeah.
The people, they are fed up from the two-party system and they want to, propagate a third-party system too. And there are a lot of people who are willing to cost their vote.
Yeah, but here's my last final point is focus on yourself, right? Focus on yourself, focus on your family, focus on your friends. Peer pressure is a hell of a way to get people to vote. There's an app called Reach, and that's like campaigning where like you can put your campaign. If someone's in a campaign, and you can sync all your contacts, and you can call, be like, hey, did you vote? I don't see you voting. You gotta vote. You gotta vote. Are you gonna vote? And so that's how we need to shift our mind is get yourself registered, your family registered, your friends registered. Be a voter register. Like I don't know if hopefully Shadow Creek can do it. Churches do this all the time, but we can get the county election admin to come here. She can give a 1-hour class on how to register people, and then you become a sworn voter registrar. So that way FJ and Jim can go to other places to register people to vote. We can get people to register to vote. So go and become a voter registrar. Get people to register, and then call your friends and family. Make sure they vote. All right. Any last?
That lasts for how many years?
So you can register. It automatically renews when you change your address. Then you got to change.
Change your address?
You should get a yellow packet or a little postcard. And so that means that you are registered. Now, Governor Abbott did do a voter purge. You can go online and you can put your information like driver's license to see if you're active. If you are, great. If you're not, there are 2 people outside who can register to vote. Say it again?
Every year, yes.
They send it every year. Yeah, every election. So. All right. Yes, sir.
Talk about third party.
Yes.
But when Rossborough ran, he got much more than 5%. But that concept of an independent candidate got fizzled out, and we can translate to a third party, then that is a moot point. My second thing is, if we want to do a punitive action against a candidate, it's better to vote for the most likely other candidate, because this is -1 vote plus 1 vote. It's a double whammy. For a third-party vote, it is just like...
Yeah. Yeah, look, that's we can interpret the strategy offline, and because Aisha is coming on, but from just my political background with my master's in political science, been there in government, in all levels of government. It's most important thing is just go out and vote. Whoever you want to vote for, that's up to you. I want to make sure everyone knows that. We're not endorsing any candidates, but most important is just go out and vote. And then who you vote for, that's between you and your conscience.
I think Rossborough was independent. He was not from a party. That's why he figured out. But this is a party which has its background sounding.
Yeah, it was individual. He was an individual and not a party. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Rossborough